Misrepresentation. Representation means what? Representation means showing off, giving out, displaying, telling. That is what making some point is called representation. False representation of fact made innocently or non-disclosure of a material fact without any intention to deceive the other party. That is what is called misrepresentation. Means innocently misrepresenting, innocently saying something wrong. I am not giving you something without any intention to cheat you, deceive. That is also called misrepresentation. What is the meaning of misrepresentation? The term misrepresentation means a false representation made innocently or in disclosure of a material fact without any intention to deceive the other party. We have just now seen this. The positive assertion, so that's what section 18 defines. Positive assertion. Assertion means what? Saying in a manner not warranted by the information of the person making it, of that which is not true though he believes it to be true. So in fraud, what we have seen, I don't believe it to be true, but I am telling you to be true. Here, I believe it to be true, but I am telling you it is not true. That is misrepresentation. Any breach of duty which without an intent to deceive gains an advantage to the person committing it, or anyone claiming under him by misleading another to his prejudice or to the prejudice of anyone claiming under him. So a little confusing English, but கடமையிலிருந்து தவறுதல். எனக்கு இந்த கடமையிலேருந்து தவறினா ஏதாவது ஒரு அட்வான்டேஜ் கிடைக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொன்னால் இன்டென்ஷன் இல்லாமல் தவறுறது. ரைட்டா? ஐ டோன்ட் வாண்ட் டு seriously go away from duty, but I did away from duty, but it resulted in an advantage without I intentionally staying away. That's the idea. On the basis of the aforesaid definition of misrepresentation, the essential elements of misrepresentation are discussed below. We are going to discuss what are all the elements. By a party to the contract. We all know any of these, all these 5 items, only by a party. Somebody stranger cannot do it. Stranger doing a misrepresentation doesn't affect the validity of the contract. Stranger doing a misrepresentation doesn't affect the validity of the contract. If X and Y are there, if some Z is making a misrepresentation, you go and say X misrepresented. That's not the way, right? But Z misrepresenting will not affect the validity because the contract is between X and Y. False representation. There must be a false representation. It must be made without the knowledge of its falsehood. தெரியாமல் செய்திருக்கப்பட வேண்டும். Right? The person making it must honestly believe it to be. I know to my mind it is right, but it is wrong. Representation as to fact. உண்மையான விஷயங்களை பற்றி represent பண்ணு. It should not be some statement of expression, opinion. That doesn't amount to misrepresentation. X sold his hotel to the person Y and stated that a part of the hotel is occupied by a tenant who is most desirable. In fact, rent from the tenant could only be recovered under pressure and was currently much in arrear. It was held that Y was entitled to avoid the contract because the X statement amounted to misrepresentation. Object. must be made with a view to inducing the other party to enter into the contract, but without the intention of deceiving the other party. You are not trying to cheat, but you are trying to invite the other person, wherein you have a misrepresentation. That should be an objective. That is objective. நோக்கம் நோக்கம் வந்து அடுத்தவங்களை கான்ட்ராக்டுக்குள்ளே சேர்க்கறதுக்கு இருக்கணும், பட் அடுத்தவங்களை ஏமாற்ற மாதிரி இருக்கக்கூடாது. That is the idea of essential element, one of the essential elements of misrepresentation. Actually acted, party should have acted, contract should have been done, or something should have been done from the other party. Example 1, X says to Y, who intends to purchase his land, my land produces 2 tons of rice per acre. X believes the statement to be true, although he has no sufficient ground for the belief. Y purchases X land believing X statement. Y finds that land produces 1.5 tons of rice per acre. Here X representation is misrepresentation. It cannot be fraud because it was a statement which is no sufficient ground or whatever. So we can normally consider this as a misrepresentation. The prospect of a company contained a statement that the company had been authorized by special act of parliament to use steam and mechanical power for running the trains. In fact, the authority to use the steam was subject to the approval of Board of Trade. Right? There was the company's prospectus, the company is authorized to operate trains, but there is a small thing which has to be approved by Board of Trade. But this was not mentioned there. The Board of Trade didn't approve the use of steam. The company wound up. Shareholders filed a suit. Court held that they were not liable for fraud. The directors are not guilty of fraud as they honestly believed. When the Parliament has authorized the use of steam, the consent of the Board of Trade practically concluded. That is a false representation, misrepresentation, not a fraud. Effects of misrepresentation. Section 19. So far we are saying 18. Now it is 19. Right to resign. Cancel pandra right. I can cancel. Right to insist upon performance. Even this was true with the fraud area also. Right to resign. The party whose consent was caused by misrepresentation can resign. But these are all the exceptions. What? Where the party whose consent was caused by misrepresentation had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. Little analysis, konjama anganga paathadale kandupidichikalam. There is a first thing. Where the party gave the consent in ignorance of misrepresentation. He was not aware there is a misrepresentation. That's a prima facie, right? Where the party, after becoming aware of the misrepresentation, takes a benefit. Knowingly there is a misrepresentation from the other party, this fellow goes ahead and does something with the contract. Where an innocent third party before the contract gets an interest. This house is sold to somebody, this horse is sold to somebody else, that way. Where the parties cannot be restored to their original portion. X leads Y erroneously means falsely, to believe that 100 mounds of indigo is a plant, dye, blue color, are made annually at X factory. வருஷத்துல 1000 mound குவிச்சு வச்சிருக்கிறதுல குவியல் 1000 குவியல் of indigo plant are made. Y examines the accounts of X factory, shows that only 800 mounds are made. After this, Y buys the factory. Now you have to see, he has done some examination. Here the contract is not viable because Y did some analysis and still buys the factory, right? So there is no misrepresentation. Right to insist upon performance. Panni kudun kekarada. Party whose consent is okay, you did a misrepresentation, okay, let's leave it. You please restore whatever, you correct the problem. Object must be made with a view to inducing the other party to enter into the contract, but without the intention of deceiving the other party. You are not trying to cheat, but you are trying to invite the other person, wherein you have a misrepresentation. Difference என்ன? Intention, willfully deceive பண்றதுக்காண்டி. There it is no willful deception. Deception is not there. Knowledge of falsehood, this person knowingly does, that person unknowingly does. Right to claim damage, here you can claim damage because fraud is a criminal offense. Here you cannot claim damage. It's only be cancelled or whatever. Availability of means to discover the truth. Where silent moves to fraud, the contract is voidable even if the aggrieved party had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. The aggrieved party cannot avoid the contract if he had the means of discovering the truth. Very clear. Even if you can find out and there is a fraud, then you can, it's voidable. Even then it is voidable.